Yo, what up, what up? Welcome to another quarantine edition of Spectator Sporting. We got a big show for you today. We talking about the worst draft in between 2000 and 2009. And to help us do that, we got a special guest. He's back in the building again for another show, Mr. Chevo, Kevin Rax. What's up, Kevin?
Thanks, fellas. I appreciate y'all having me. I'm glad to join y'all. Talk some sports.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Adi, how you doing today?
I'm fantastic.
Man, so this is an interesting show right here. So we'll see what we can do with it. So I guess I'll start with Chevo, the guest on the show, the guest of the hour, the man of the hour. What is the worst draft class from 2000 to 2009?
I took some time and I went through the drafts looking at different players, win shares, all-star appearances, different things like that. And I eliminated and came up with my top three bad drafts for that time period. The top three that I had was the 2000 draft, which featured Kenyon Martin as the number one pick. We had the 2001 draft that featured Kwame Brown as the number one pick. And then the 2006 draft, which featured my Chicago Bulls trading LaMarcus Aldridge for Tyrese Thomas. So those are my top three. Ultimately, I ended up picking the 2000 draft. That draft, just for lack of a better word, sucked. I mean, we only have three All-Stars from that draft. We had Kenyon Martin. We had Michael Redd, who I would say was probably the steal from the second round of that draft, and then you had Jamal McGlure. And the one thing I don't think of when I think of All-Star games is Jamal McGlure. So no offense. But that is the one that I landed on out of my top three bad drafts for the 2000s.
Yeah, that was a terrible draft. I mean, that probably was the worst draft in NBA history. You can argue. I mean, we might have to do a show and look at every draft, and that 2000 draft might be, at least top two, top three, no question. Adi, what's your worst draft from 2000 to 2009?
Yeah, man. It's the 2000 draft, man. Like you said, it may be the worst of all time. In the no player in the class of 2000 made it to the All-Star team more than one time. Okay, so no player in this draft made more than one All-Star appearance. And then you got the number 2 overall pick from LSU, Stromal, the Stro Show Swift. All right. The man was a super athletic big man, but he just refused to try to develop any kind of post game, any kind of jump, just fancy dunks. That's it, for a disappointing career average of 8 points, 4 rebounds per game. You got the number 3 pick, high school phenom from East St. Louis, Darius, to the Clippers. And he was on the cover of Sports Illustrated with Kevin Garnett before his rookie year. The hype was real. And even Sean Kemp came up to him, gave him some advice like, hey, man, every time you dunk the ball, make sure you dunk hard. And Darius Miles, he was doing that. He was dunking the ball hard. He'd do the double tap with the fist to the head and everything like that. But the Rain Man should have also told him that he was a superstar in this league, not just because he can dunk really good. Real and watch the games. No, this man had a sweet butter jump shot. The man had post moves, things like that. And Darius Miles never did develop a game like that. And he was traded in 2002 for point guard Andre Miller to the Cleveland Cavaliers. And then in 2004, the Cavaliers was looking for him, sent the police to his house because he wasn't showing up to practice. When they found him, they traded him to the Portland Trail Blazers. Darius Miles never made it to a playoff game, never played a playoff game in his career, had a disappointing career average of 10 points, 5 rebounds. And you got number 4 pick from Iowa State, power forward, Marcus Fizer.
Ooh, Marcus Fizer.
To the Chicago Bulls. And it was a dubious pick because the Bulls already had Elton Brand playing power forward, playing solid for the Bulls and things like that. They're playing Fizer at small forward, forcing him to play that position. He was looking very awkward, playing small forward. The Bulls.
That was definitely a favor for Tim Floyd.
Yeah, because Tim Floyd coached him at Iowa State his freshman year, so just bring him on and things like that. But he had a career average of 9 points, 4 rebounds per game. The man only played more than 55 games twice in his short 6-year career, but he was the MVP of the D-League in 2006. The list goes on and on, man. It was a terrible.
Yeah,
I think Miles should have known not to take advice from Kemp, and it's ironic they both ended up getting shipped off to Cleveland once their initial teams gave up on them.
Yeah. They were just a terrible job. I mean, I give Jamal Crawford came in that draft. He got some 6 Man of the Year awards. He just got signed back. He's still going. Kenyon Martin had a solid career. He was on winning teams. He played in some big playoff games. He went to the finals with the Nets. Michael Redd, he had a couple good years that he should have made the All-Star team. He didn't. He was averaging like 25, 26 a game. But other than that, that's the only bright spots I can find. You got a couple role players like Mike Miller, but Darius Miles was the one. I'm with you, Audi. Darius Miles, I thought all the hype he had coming out of high school, then I saw him in the McDonald's All-American game, and he was killing. I was like, yeah, this dude is going to be the truth. And he was a lie. It was not a truth. It was a lie. So 2000 was just every team. You can't even name a team that really did good in that draft. You can't nobody say nothing bad about nobody in that draft because everybody had a bad draft that year. So it was
the team that thought they won was definitely the Clippers because you guys forgot to mention that Quinn Richardson came out in that draft.
Yep.
So they paired him with Darius Miles and Lamar Odom, who was already out there, and they just thought that they acquired Elton Brand and they thought that would be the team of the future. Unfortunately, they acquired more fist pounds than championships. So.
Not to mention, Mateen Cleaves went number 14 to the Detroit Pistons.
yeah, that was horrible, man. And shoot, but you know what? The Kings, they did come up. They drafted Hedo Turkoglu at number 16 pick. I think that was a hidden gem to find. Yeah. He played good with Weber and Bibby, and then he went to Orlando Magic, and they made it to the NBA Finals in 2009. He averaged 17 points, 5 rebounds, 5 assists. He ended up being a good player, a nice find from Turkey. Yeah,
you got to remember, at this time in 2002, they were still letting them come out of high school, too. So a lot of these high schools that came out, if they didn't pan out in this draft particularly. They had a dunk champion in this draft. Remember, Desmond Mason.
Right.
Yeah, he was a good dunker, but he couldn't shoot. So, listen, we can go on day. So anything positive, I know we're trying to find some positive. It's very hard. This is probably the toughest topic it is out there to find some positives about. But, Chevo, is there anything positive about this draft?
I think you pretty much summed it up. The positives that I looked at for the 2000 draft was the fact that, as you mentioned, Jamal Crawford being drafted. That was pretty much the most, other than Kenyon Martin, the 2 most successful players of the draft. Like you said, him receiving a couple of 6 Man a year awards, being an instant bucket no matter what team he was on, being able to score the ball. I remember I liked him when he was with the Bulls. I was disappointed when they did trade him. So that probably would have been the shining spot of this draft. And as we both mentioned, Michael Redd, being that they found him in the 2nd round, he was a pretty good scorer and offensive talent that had his career ended short by injury. So those would have been the bright spots that I could think of looking at this 2000 draft.
Absolutely. Anything positive, Audi? Anything? Let's give 2000 some credit. Any credit you can give them.
Well, yeah, you know what? Hey, y'all said it, Jamal Crawford, man. That was my favorite Bull. His 4 years with the Chicago Bulls, he was my favorite one. I don't know if it was him or Tracy McGrady, the first guy to throw it off the glass, throw an alley-oop to himself off the glass and dunk in the game. The man was very exciting. He had that razzle-dazzle street ball and one mixtape type of game. The Bulls did trade him and Jerome Williams for Old Mutombo and Othello Harrington and a couple other guys to the New York Knicks. That was real foolish of them and everything like that. But Jamal Crawford, he ended up breaking Michael Jordan's record when he was playing with the Phoenix Suns. He broke Jordan's record for oldest guy to score 50 points in the game. And he was the only player in NBA history to score 50 points for 4 different teams. And he's the only guy from this entire draft still be playing in the league. The Brooklyn Nets just signed him. He's 40 years old. So that's definitely a bright spot. And I mentioned Hedo Turkoglu, the guy, 16 pick. That was a great pick for the Sacramento Kings.
Draft class, no Hall of Famers. no MVPs. There's nothing really to talk about in this draft. It was just all bad.
I would mention one thing. When I was looking at them, I was tempted to pick some of the other years, especially since I was disappointed again by my all-time favorite player, Jordan. Not only was he behind Kwame Brown picking the 2001 draft, he had something to do with that. He also had something to do with, I believe, I'm not sure if Adi spoke about that before, he might have also had something to do with the Adam Morrison pick when he moved on. So this another example of a bad draft and affecting two different teams. So.
I mean, 2004 wasn't the best draft either. I mean, I know Dwight Howard went number one. He ended up panning out, but the rest of that draft was, very so-so. I mean, I remember it was a big debate about who should the Orlando Magic pick, Emeka Okafor or Dwight Howard, and, Orlando chose the right guy. But so, I mean, 2000 wasn't the only bad draft, but that was the worst draft by far.
2002 was pretty bad. They only had 4 All-Stars: Yao Ming, Amari Stoudemire, Caron Butler, and Carlos Boozer.
You can stop right there with the first 2, Yao Ming and Amari Stoudemire. They killing everybody easily in that draft of 2000 right there. I mean, the 2000 don't even have 2 players.
That's what made me not go with that year, Adi, is that just alone with Yao, for the time he was in the NBA, I wasn't the biggest Yao fan, but he definitely made a cultural impact, and being a big man, they kind of faced him, like you said, against guys like Shaq, and not only did he have some big blocks, but he had some big dunks that he was actually got dunked on as well. So, yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, 2000. 2007. Them 2 was probably the worst. I'm not gonna lie. Them 2004 and 2000. 2002 was pretty bad. But all those drafts consisted of at least a couple players that stood out and broke out. 2000 really didn't. I mean, Kenyon Martin's about as best as you got. He was a solid player. He was an all-star. But that was about as best as you got. And Kenyon Martin, I don't think he's going to make the Hall of Fame. Is that fair to say?
No, he only made the All-Star team one time. He only made 1 All-Star.
That's definitely fair to say. I mean, the Nets' legacy is coming up short during this time. Now he really didn't. They made it to the Eastern Conference Finals, right? But they didn't win during his time there.
Well, they went to the finals 2 years in a row.
Okay.
They lost to the Lakers and the Spurs.
I said the Eastern Conference Finals. I meant the finals. That's when Jason Kidd was there. But and I know he went on to Denver, and they just never could get over the hump. Even with 1 championship, I don't think he probably would be a Hall of Fame.
He ain't. He's a good player, but he's not a Hall of Fame official. So.
He was a solid player, just not really Hall of Fame level. And like you said, this pretty much, just looking at that picture, I could definitely Photoshop out some trash bags in place of some of those players.
Adi, that's a crazy picture. Hey, listen, now a lot of these guys, now to be fair, a lot of these guys, when they was in college, I thought it was going to be good. Like, I thought Kenyon Martin would be better. I definitely thought Mike Miller would be better. Even though Mike Miller ended up having a long career and he was able to get him a couple championships, I thought he'd be more of a player in the league. So it was a couple of players I thought that was going to be way better than I thought that was. And, of course, we already talked about him, Darius Miles. I think if Darius Miles would have panned out in this draft, like with all the hype, I think we might look at this draft slightly different, just slightly different. I mean, it'd still be terrible, but if Darius Miles lived up to his expectations, I think, we might have thought about another draft if he would have showed up, because he was supposed to be the phenom in that draft.
You also had Chris Mim, the number 7 pick, okay? So full of just misses, and then you also had DeMar Johnson, went to the Atlanta Hawks, and he was a number 6 overall pick from Cincinnati, and that's a very forgettable guy. So it was just misses all over the.
Right? Can't nobody say they got over on somebody. I mean, nothing happened. Happened.
I will say, Jonathan Bender. Like, if you think about if Jonathan Bender would have stayed committed to Mississippi State rather than entering the 1999 draft, he would have definitely benefited from a year in college, and then he could have. But when he broke Michael Jordan's record in the McDonald's All-American game, he broke Michael Jordan's scoring record. He decommitted from Mississippi State into the 1999 draft and ended up being the number 5 overall pick with the Indiana Pacers. And he should have went to college. He probably would have came out in the 2000 draft and enhanced the draft with a year of college to better his game and things like that. But we'll never know. And you got, like we said, it was only 3 All-Stars in this whole entire draft. You had the number 1 pick, Kenyon Martin. You also have the 2nd round pick, 2nd best player in this draft, Michael Redd, who was the only All-NBA player in his entire draft, the only player to make the All-NBA team. But he had the MCL injury and ACL injury. He had 5 really good years before the injury. And then you got the worst All-Star that I've ever seen in my entire life. Kevin talked about this earlier. Maul, that's the worst All-Star. And he made the damn All-Star team over rookie LeBron James, right? So whoever voted McGlure over LeBron James is a damn fool.
You know who else was in this draft?
All-Star game must have been held in Charlotte or something. But what was that All-Star game held at?
I don't know, man.
You know who else was in that draft? Remember this? Who used to do this to LeBron when they used to play him?
Deshaun
Stevenson.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I saw him there when you mentioned when you said Desmond Mason, the dunk champ. I'm like, we saw because he was one of those dudes. I believe he did in game where he went up and smacked the backboard and like did a 360 and dunk. I'm not sure if that was in game or just it was a video, but Deshaun Stevenson was known for his dunks. That was another out of high school player.
I don't know if you'll find another draft worse than that. I mean, we can reflect on history. I mean, I don't know how far your memory banks go back, but I'm just trying to, I mean, even in recent memory, like, has it been a draft that you can kind of compare to this as being terrible as this?
Well, you know what? You have to wait, like, for recent memory, you have to give it some more years to see how terrible these drafts are, like the 2016, 17 draft, stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah, you had to go back, we'll see the 90s and 80s and things like that and see if there's a draft worse than this. But you talk about no player to make more than 1 All-Star appearance, that's as bad.
That's hard to do.
Yeah.
That's hard.
Yeah.
That's really hard to do.
It really only had 2 All-Stars because Jamal McGurr over LeBron James makes no sense.
Yeah, they just needed a big man in the game or something. I don't know. And they ain't want to, at that time, they was real strict on trying, if you was a rookie trying to make the All-Star team, you really had to, you had to pretty much dominate. Like, even if you were great, most rookies don't make the All-Star team, even if they're really good their rookie season, which is insane. Well, you guys been watching another quarantine edition of Spectator Sport. Thanks for tuning in and watching us talk about the most terrible draft we know, which is 2000. I knew we was all going to agree on the same one. I mean, if somebody try to pick worse, I mean, you're like pulling hairs out. I don't know how you could do it, but it just wouldn't be true. But I want to thank Chevo Kevin Rax once again for being on the show. Much appreciated.
Thanks. I appreciate y'all having me.
Man, good doing the show with you again. Until next time. So in the meantime, until then, we out. Peace.
They call him Little KG. Kevin Garnett was the number 5 pick in '95. Here in the year 2000, the 3rd selection overall, high schooler Darius Miles. This guy has been described so many ways in the weeks leading up to the draft as the enigma of the draft, as the future in the NBA. Michael Jordan saying, I would pick this kid in a heartbeat.